The emotional well-being of children can be directly tied to their caregivers and the families in which they live. Parents taking care of themselves and addressing their own stresses is in the best interests of the children. The same can be said for teachers. Teachers being overworked and underpaid is nothing new, but things have gotten even tougher since the pandemic. There's longer work hours, remote learning, in-person instruction, hybrid learning, policing masks and social distancing. They went from heroes on the front lines to politics taking over the classroom. This has made a tough situation intolerable for many teachers, and nearly 4 in 10 reported that working during the pandemic has made them consider changing jobs. To avoid a great resignation and further disruption in the lives of children, the mental well-being of teachers needs attention.
I'm Cara Hiripitiyage. I'm the Director of Secondary Education in the Pattonville School District. I was also an assistant principal previously, and I started as a high school English teacher in the Lindbergh School District. Teaching has always been a challenging career. It's a career that's of the mind and of the heart, and so teachers bring a lot of themselves to the work they do every day. They are looking to connect intellectually with their students, whether we're talking about small children or high schoolers or even beyond. But there's also the work of the heart and building the relationships and making the connections. And that's hard work in itself.
When your mind is hurting, when you're under this stress, it's hard to work from the heart. What's the reality? Is this real? Is this true that so many teachers are choosing to leave the profession because it's too hard and strenuous? Not hard in that they can't teach children, right, but the circumstances around it.
I definitely have seen some very talented, very impressive teachers who are choosing to go into other fields. Now that happens from time to time. That's not unusual, but I am seeing more than maybe I would have in the past. And in some ways that's very heartbreaking because I know they're fantastic educators and they've done great work with kids. But I also respect that people have to do what they need to do for their own personal growth and their own personal health. So
have you heard why? What are some of the reasons why some of them are leaving that might surprise you, that you thought would stay longer?
I think sometimes it's additional opportunities. We're also in a place right now, just economically, where there are a lot of great jobs that are available. And when anyone's in a position where they're having challenges in meeting the needs at work and supporting their families at home, I think sometimes exploring other opportunities is something they might do. So it's a real concern, but I think it's not unlike healthcare workers or any other workers that were uniquely taxed during this time.
Also at that time, everybody thought, well, this is just going to be for now.
That's right.
And so it's a lot easier, and I think all of us, regardless of what we do or how our lives are, was like, well, we can do this because this isn't going to be very long. But during a pandemic, when there's masks and you can't communicate as well,
right,
you're always worried about your students and how they're learning, but then you put that on top of it. It's more than what was in the job description.
Oh, absolutely. And everyone had to pivot and learn very rapidly. And teachers are learners. That's I think partly natural, but the speed and the changes and the concerns and the way in which we were all just adjusting and not sure about the level of health and safety made it very, very challenging. And I think it was a huge stressor. And then of course it endured.
When it all started, teachers were considered the heroes and they were doing all of the work and they were on the front lines taking care of our kids. But then as that endured, they weren't as supported as maybe they were at the beginning. Yeah. And that has to hurt.
I think teachers were in tough spots because families were used to leaning on them and they couldn't lean on them in those same ways. And then teachers, of course, many of which are parents. So they have their own children at home learning while they're also trying to teach and support other children. So the challenges and layers, I think, were almost impossible at times. Schools already have a lot of rules, and a lot of those rules are for safety and for health. But this was new, and there were mixed feelings about some of these rules. And so that provided levels of challenges too, because schools are trying to maintain safety, and you have students who are coming in with various feelings about whether they want to comply with mask wearing or whether they don't. And it created one more level of a challenge for teachers to be kind of watching that and trying to maintain the safety. Also, good classroom instruction usually means moving around, trying unique classroom setups and having kids in groups. All of those things that we know are best practices in education also went out the window. We had to keep kids spaced apart. We had to make sure they didn't interact too much. They didn't interact too much with different kids. We couldn't do that creative grouping work. So teachers couldn't rely on the usual practices that we know are good in education.
2 years of going to school like this for kids adds on more educational challenges for them, whether that's social emotional, whether it's academic. When you've got kids starting kindergarten on Zoom, well, guess who has to fix that? The teachers.
Right. And I know a lot of teachers feel a lot of pressure when they're seeing students who are behind academically or behind socially, emotionally. So that is another piece of this.
What's at stake for the kids if we as a community, as a state, don't take better care and make their mental well-being a priority?
Well, you said before, we lean on our teachers as extensions of our families. I remember when I was a teacher, I had a parent reach out to me and said, I think you see my daughter more than I see my daughter. And that really caught me, and it really made me realize these are the people who young people are spending most of their time with. And so we need the most caring, compassionate, engaging people to be in these roles. And I would hate for people, especially future educators, to perhaps not want to come into education or go another direction, and for some of these fantastic people not to enter the field and have the impact on students that they could have. I think that's the risk. We need to make sure that this is a career choice that's sustainable and that people want to be a part of. It's for the sake of our kids and for their education and their futures. And I don't know, too many people wouldn't think that's something is more valuable than that.
For Living St. Louis, I'm Anne-Marie Berger.